backlog never ends, and here's what I'll be playing in 2023. The only rule is that these games must have already released. First up is Astral Chain. It's made by Platinum, that alone is enough to draw me in. That stamp is pretty much the telltale sign that this game will have its combat down at the very least. Gameplay I've seen gives me the impression that it's flashy, visceral and fun to engage in, not to mention it appears to give the player a lot of options to work with, which is always a plus as you progress further into the game. What also drew me in was the presentation. It looks really good as far as Switch exclusives go, though one point of contention I've heard is that the Switch itself can't exactly present it as optimally as one might like. And for that reason, I'm considering emulating the game instead. Might as well use my more beefy hardware to get the best experience possible. The final big hit for me was the soundtrack. I've heard a couple of songs from the collection and I already know I'm going to be a fan of what it has to offer. I hope to play this one very early in 2023. Another title I'm massively looking forward to is Odin Sphere Life Frasir from Vanillaware. Ever since Aegis Rim I found myself enamoured with the works of this development team. They've got this unique flair that just cannot be replicated, which is why I'm also looking forward to the release of Grim Grimoire later this year, but that's a story for another time. As for Odin Sphere, well, it's pretty obvious that one reason I was drawn in was its fluid and quite frankly beautiful visuals. I'll never get tired of looking at it, and I'm sure there will be a bunch of neat details throughout that will keep me hooked into the adventure. I haven't heard too much about what the story has to offer, and frankly I'd prefer it to stay that way, for if it's anywhere near as good as the narrative of Aegis Rim, I know that I'll be remembering it long after I've finished. Moving on, for the record, I've never played a Monster Hunter game and I don't think I'll be diving into the main series anytime soon. Nothing against it, but it doesn't seem to be my cup of tea. However, as I was scouring the shelves of my local game store, I saw the telltale sign of a JRPG on sale, a perk of living in the UK might I add. In this case, I stumbled upon Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. I had never heard of this game till I picked it up, but I scoured the back and saw that it had turn-based combat. So I thought, why not? I read a little bit more into it after coming back home and I noted the integration of a so-called egg system where rather than taming beasties you're hatching them instead, and you find them while exploring the world. Then on top of that you've got the addition of genes which determine their skill sets, but it also gave me the impression that it allows flexibility and freedom to the player in how it works. I'm not sure what to think about this one, but I felt it had the potential of being a hidden gem. Now to something I am more familiar with. Me and Atelier, we get on pretty well. However, last year I wanted to play the Dusk Trilogy but never got around to doing it, and I think that was a good mishap in hindsight because I was also inclined to eventually play the 4 Arlen games as well. But since the majority of those games came out before the Dusk Trilogy, I figured I might as well play these first and then I'm working upwards in quality, at least aesthetically speaking. The only thing I'm really worried about in the Arlen games is that time limit. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to overcome that constant reminder over my head that I'm under pressure to get things done. That's not how I like my Atelier experiences to go. But I'll never know if I don't at least try, so it's happening this year. Now for this next one, it seems like everyone and their mother has played it, and I don't think I need to introduce Chained Echoes, nor do I need to explain why I want to play it. This indie title was one of the standout games of the year for many, and I want a piece of it. That's all I need to say. Right, next up is this space-based SRPG called Relayer, and I've got all the more reason to play it now as an enhanced version is now on PC. I was intrigued by this game as soon as I saw the first trailers, and I'm aware it hasn't exactly set the world alight, but I still want to give it a whirl. From what I've heard, it's got a solid story with plenty of twists and turns, and the presentation looks great even in this visual novel format. The SRPG mechanics themselves seem to be solid, and the big plus is that it's all in space with Gundam-style warships. It might be the case that this game is simply a by-the-numbers title which just barely makes the grade, but it seems to have the makings of a decent enough experience and I'm willing to give it a chance. Up next is another game I bought on sale from my local game store. It's Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom, and there were a lot of copies for this. I'm talking over 5 copies in the store on that day alone. Now hopefully that's not an indication that the game blows, but after the first one, which I thought was fairly decent in of itself, I think I owe the sequel a look in at the very least. What really stood out to me though was the multitude of different game types that are in this title, at least from what I've perused in the past. It seems to have the standard RPG approach, but also dabbles in the waters of kingdom simulation and real-time strategy. I've also been told that the story on offer here is actually pretty good. Some have stated that it eclipses the first game in many respects, so that's always a good sign. I'm not sure when I'll get to this one, but I will certainly get to it this year at the very least. Alright, yes, this next one is pretty weird as a choice, but hey, it looks like straight up brainless fun, and sometimes that's what I need after playing more intense or cognitively demanding titles. Samurai Maiden never stood out to me as a game that was going to break the sphere and become a classic for the ages, but it was pretty clear that it was never intending to do that in the first place. It seemed like a game that was self-aware of how strange it was in premise alone, and the trailers that promoted it in the lead up to its release reinforced that stance even more. And if the game knows what it's trying to be, that's a good sign that it will go go full throttle on the premise it's trying to execute, which is a positive factor in how the game actually turns out. It might be absolutely terrible, sure, and part of me is expecting that, but it's got my attention. And this is another one I'm on the fence about, and to be honest, it was between this and Harvestella, but I've played my fair share of farm sim games lately, so I figured I'd let Deerfield Chronicle take the stage this year instead. Now, while it seems to have a solid tactical engine and some neat mechanics, there's something that doesn't feel right with it, as if it looks like it becomes repetitive very early on. I'm a bit worried that the mechanics won't develop or shift as the story progresses, resulting in a bland result for what should be a fairly decent gameplay approach. From what I've seen as well, the mission design seem uninspired, which might work in tandem with the repetitive gameplay. As a result, it's another one that I'll be holding on to in curiosity rather than biting at the ankle to play immediately, and there's a chance I might not get to it at all. And we're not done with the curveballs, this is another odd one, but hear me out. I really liked Blue Reflection's Second Light. I thought it was a hugely underappreciated game and did so many things right in terms of the themes it covered and how cozy it felt overall, with the whole hanging around in a school stranded in an alternate dimension. I know it doesn't sound relaxing, but it was. And I've always wanted to go back and play the original Blue Reflection, which I'm aware is the weaker game in many people's eyes. It has flaws in its combat system, it's noted as too easy, there's no leveling up, and though it appears to have good ideas, it doesn't exactly form a whole that is the sum of its parts. But I feel like I can look past that, especially after playing the sequel, and at the very least it might even allow me to appreciate that game even more than I already do. So it's on the list for 2023. Hybrid visual novel up next, and since Nirvana Initiative released and there's been hints of a third game being developed in the future, I feel like now is the best time to jump into AI the Somnium Files. I hear so many good things about this game. Its sci-fi setting forms an interesting premise for a plot, it's got a notably strong cast of characters apparently, and it's got a lot of intrigue in terms of the themes it explores. This is yet another title that I've not read too much into on purpose. I feel it's something that needs to be experienced as blind as possible in order to fully appreciate, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it has to offer. Finally up to the pedestal for 2023 is a game that so many people have asked me to play, and it's another indie title. This one is an action RPG called Crosscode. It's got that retro feel, it blends exploration and fast-paced combat, and it just appears to be a very enjoyable game. It might not be the deepest experience ever, but it must be doing something right if everyone and their grandmother gives it praise. I'm interested to see what it has to offer, though I am apprehensive about the puzzle-solving aspect, which apparently is a focus of the game. That element isn't my cup of tea in any game I play, so the jury's out for now. Either way, it will be played this year. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.